Hi, this video is for Kevin, just to show him how to actually prepare the clock that he's purchased off of eBay. The whole point is that you need to know before obviously it arrives that it is in absolutely working order. The idea is that all of the clocks, every single clock that is Westminster chiming with the 3 holes have to be calibrated, meaning that this surface here is uneven. Any surface that gets put on is going to be uneven, so wherever you put this clock it is going to be specific for that particular center of gravity, meaning that in the back of this clock is a mechanism that allows you to just adjust the center of gravity so that the clock ticks perfectly fine. So what you're hearing in the background is my own personal clock, by the way, so it's 9 o'clock at the moment. But what I'm going to do is make sure that this is working perfectly fine to show you by video, and then post it over to you as soon as possible, so it will be tomorrow morning. So this is Friday evening at the moment, and it will be posted on Saturday. So here it is. This is your Westminster clock. Now the idea behind it is that this clock is sitting on this table. Wherever it's going to be sent to you, it's going to be a different center of gravity. So how do we make this work? So here it is. First of all, let me just show you the back of the clock. So this clock here obviously comes in with a chamber. I'm just going to make sure, there we go, and I'm just going to make sure that the sales ticket is out the way as well. So within the clock, and obviously this is going to be packaged up properly, so that these are individually packaged up. Everything, the internal mechanisms are hopefully going to be fine during the post. So what we've got is the key that is sold with the clock. This is the pendulum that actually has to find the center of gravity. This screw here on the clock, on the actual pendulum, so let me bring that in, is for making the tick go faster and slower. And I do apologise if you already know this, but what happens is that when you unscrew this, obviously it goes a lot slower. When you screw it, it's because it's warm climates at the moment that this metal, and including the actual pin that holds the clock itself, is, as you can see there, let me just bring some light into it, is that you're able to see that is ticking independently, but it's ticking pretty fast. So, and again, because tonight is a warm night, what happens is that this metal will expand and it'll start to go a lot slower. So what you'll need to do is make sure that this is tightened to go a little bit faster. So it just counters the actual speed of it. This is natural because it's to do with barometric pressure and metals. So first of all, let's just show you how this is going to be done. So here it is. I'm going to hook this on there, and what happens is that this surface here has, so what I recommend you do is first of all set it down. You may be lucky, so whatever surface you put it on, make sure that it's facing, the clock is facing towards you, reach behind it and then just go and position it where you want it. Make sure you can open the door, reach behind it and just tick it. Now what I'm going to let you listen to is the ticking, because that's the most important part, the crucial part. Notice that ticking is longer than the tock, so the tick is literally longer than the tock. And notice that it's actually stopped on its own accord. So I'll show you that again. Oh, there we go, again. And when you listen to that, you'll notice that the tick is longer than the tock. And that means it's going to stop. There we go. Absolutely stopped. It is swinging, but it's not ticking. Okay, so the reason, the way that to do it is that there is an L shape right inside there. So I'll show you this. This little latch here that holds this center pin. So that holds the pendulum, and then you've got this little L shape that sort of protrudes through that hole. What you do is you push it left or right so that this entire mechanism here finds its center of gravity. So it's to make sure that when you swing it, that the tock is perfect. So here we go. Let's try it towards the right. Okay, so I've just nudged it beyond its limit towards the right. So let's just listen to this. Okay, so that's off. So I'm going to try it just a little bit further to the right because I assume it needs to be there. So we go beyond its limit and just a little bit to the right. So I'm going to swing it. No, and again it stopped. So let's just find that centre of gravity again to the left. And it's ever so subtle. Okay, a little bit further. Okay, I'm going to make sure just one thing's happened as well, that it's completely wound, because that can play a vital role. So let me just make sure, and I'll show you how to tighten this so that obviously the spring doesn't get broken. So that's tightened there. So all three holes. There we go. So I assume that is tightened enough, but let's just assume. So I'm going to let it go without adjusting it and just see if that's made any difference. So that stopped again, so let me see ever so subtly to the right. Oh. I think, just make sure it's actually sitting on a proper surface, because there is obviously the forwards and backwards that might affect it as well. So let's just make sure that that's fine. Okay, so that's nudged it. Let's go to So I'm going to let this tick just for a little while longer, just to make sure. It is important because what I've done is found the centre of gravity for this specific table. What I'm probably going to do is turn it around so this clock faces towards us, and then what you'll find is that this clock will probably change its rhythm and its centre of gravity. So listen to this. Sorry, by the way, what you're listening to is my other clock, which is just a little bit too late. Give me 1 second. So this is actually moving ahead quite nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually swing it the other way around so it's facing us. So when you get this mantle, when you put it onto your mantelpiece or whatever surface, that when you turn it around, that the center of gravity is going to change, of course, because you've completely rotated it. So when you receive it, put the pendulum on, turn it around. Okay. Let me just make sure you see the whole thing. Okay. Now I can hear it ticking. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just have a look at the back of the clock as it's positioned on whatever surface. It may be tight against the wall, it may be only a certain amount of space, but let's just have a look anyway. So let me just move the light so you can see it. So inside here, you should be able to see the pendulum. and I assume that this at some point it will stop. Okay, so it's a little bit dark, but you'll still be able to actually see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it carry on ticking, and it may stop, because I feel that the tick might be just a little bit longer than the talk. Oh. So what you've just heard is the 45-minute Westminster chime. And I'm going to let this carry on just for a little, because I suspect that the sound it's making is just a little bit too long in the talk than it is in the tick. So I'm going to let it carry on for a bit. And it seems quite sound. Okay, it seems quite happy. So the idea is to actually reach at the back here and start messing around with the actual lever here. So let me just show you so you can see it. Is that the lever here should allow you to adjust it with your hand reaching at the back. So I'll show you from a proper perspective. So when you got it here and you lay it down, when you rest it for the first time, place it, reach at the back. Let me just get the camera angle correct. So reach to the back, you will know what that L shape is. You'll just be able to actually push it left and right. And then let me just start swinging it very slightly, and now it's going perfectly fine. So what I'm going to do is then now show you, regardless of its position, because now you know how to adjust it so that when you rest the clock is on a center of gravity. The next part is to actually work out how the actual face mechanism works. So this is quite important, because what we've got here is the 3 holes. One chime is for the actual internal mechanism. The other chime is for the every 15 minutes, and the last one is the hourly chime. So the whole Westminster chime. And I'll let you listen to the hourly chime now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to proceed this very, very slowly. So that's the 4 o'clock chime, yeah? And you've heard the whole Westminster chime, so it went through the whole Westminster routine, meaning that if you were to push this and proceed this to the quarter, the first quarter, it should play the first quarter chime. Okay, that's the first quarter chime, and then moving on to the second quarter chime, which is at past, and it will ring 4 at the same time. And it needs to do that, so here we go. Okay, that was the 4:30. Now we're going to ring make it the quarter 2, which is the third quarter. So let's just have a look. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Okay, that's the chime for the quarter 2, which is the third quarter. And then now we're going to hear the 5 o'clock chime, which will be on the hour. And luckily you can still hear the clock ticking, hopefully. So you may, that was the 5 o'clock chime, so there may be a point where, for example, you may, and never move the handles backwards because it totally messes up the mechanism. It puts it out of calibration and breaks teeth. So that will totally mess it up. I would recommend always going forward. So for example, I know it's 9 o'clock at the moment, so I wouldn't say, for example, I would rather move it forwards, but let's assume that you want to move this hour to the 3 o'clock. What I would probably recommend is moving it all the way through the chime. Now, this then brings up the next question, is how do you make the clock silent? And then you just push this lever down, outright, and this is the switch for chime and silent. So you may just want to hear the ticking clock, that might be enough for you, but there's the one thing to remember. This handle always remembers this, but this chime doesn't remember its position. You need to remind it, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So for example, let's assume that you've rested this mantle clock and you put it on silent and you just go through the motion. So the day carries on as it would, goes through the hours, through the hours, through the hours, through the hours, and then as it goes across until 6 o'clock, yeah, it's going to carry on going, carry on going. So let's say at 6:30 you want to hear the chimes again. Now remember that this was set to strike on the quarter past. Yeah, we've already passed the half past chiming sequence, and we're going to about to enter the quarter two, which is the third quarter. But remember, this still thinks it's about to be the first quarter. This is essential to remember, because if I was to do this, that was the quarter past. Yeah, and this is chiming now. To remind you what hour it is, so that if this was misaligned it would just basically position it, but it thought it was quarter past. Now we've already passed the half past marker, so let's have a listen again and let's just see how out of line it is. So let's just go to the third quarter and we'll hear the half past chime. So what you've heard there is that this entire sequence now is 15 minutes out of line, or one chime off. So what you have to do is, this is built to actually progress the chime. So what you do is you push it down once, very hard, and then you push it up once, very hard. Okay, so that is telling you that obviously it's nearest the 6 o'clock, it's quarter past, that is correct. And that means that when it goes to the hour, it will be ringing at 7 o'clock correctly. It has caught up with itself. So let's try that one more time. So I'm going to put it onto silent so you don't hear the 7 o'clock chime, and we go to the 7 o'clock, hear nothing. Then we go to the 7:15, we hear nothing. And then at 7:30 you say, okay, right, maybe I want to hear the chime go off. What we've done is gone an entire half an hour ahead. So I'll explain to you why. Now we're going to hear the full 1 hour sequence, because before, so what you've heard now is essentially the half past marker. It was the 1 hour marker. Now what we do is we use this lever to progress it once and then twice so it catches up with itself. So we go once down and once again. So we let that play. Okay, and then what we do is we bring it down once and then we bring it up again. And then that should then go to the half past. And now that's perfectly set up. So what I'll do is I'll progress it further. Let's just go to the quarter to 8, or the third sequence. Perfect. So what I'm going to do now, as you can hear, the clock is ticking, so let's just bring it up very closely. All this time the clock has been ticking fine. Okay, now what we're going to do is just wait for it to actually come in. So now what I normally do is just let this run very, very slowly, come very close to the hour, and let's just wait and just see what happens. So in its own accord, it should start chiming at the 8 o'clock hour. And there you go, that's a fully working clock, all tested and ready to go. I've set it for 8 o'clock. I don't know what time it will arrive to your house, but if you say you receive it at around about, say, midday, make sure you just wind it through when it's silent. Make sure that you use this toggle in order to progress the quarterly markers, or so that it catches up with itself. But you already know the Westminster Chimes and how they actually play. So if it arrives to your house, it should actually be, say, let's say it arrives to your house by around about 11:15. All you have to do is move this to the 11 o'clock hour with this silent, and then if it's 11:15, what you do is you swing this up, wait for it to play the sequence and work out which sequence it's on, or progress this as it goes along, and just make sure that it's 11:15 will be dun 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 dun. That's it. And that should actually then play that sequence at 11:15. So you just make sure you always move the handle, the long handle, forwards, never backwards. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for your purchase, Kevin. Hope to get a positive feedback, because this proves that this is actually working fine. But let's just make sure. I just hope that this arrives fine in the post. What I'll do is I'll package this up all individually, as in the pendulum and the key will be separated, everything else will be padded in, and look forward to your feedback. Thank you very much.